Some people destroy themselves with nothing but their own tongue. They talk too much, reveal too much, argue over things that don't matter, and expose their weaknesses with every careless word they let slip. They think they sound smart, persuasive, in control, but all they do is broadcast their ignorance. A fool is not always the loudest person in the room, but they are always the one who cannot resist speaking. They explain when no explanation is needed. They seek validation where none is required. They try to prove their worth with words, never realizing that true intelligence is measured in restraint. A wise man? He doesn't waste breath on pointless arguments. He doesn't feel the need to announce his superiority. He doesn't give away his strategy, his insecurities, or his power with reckless speech. He understands what fools do not. Silence is a weapon. Precision is power. And the fewer words you waste, the more weight they carry. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." This includes our words. The more you speak without thought, the less power you hold. The more you react impulsively, the easier you are to manipulate. The more you reveal, the easier you are to defeat. So ask yourself, do your words elevate you, or do they expose you? Do they build respect, or do they strip you of it? Because intelligence is not just how you think, it's how you speak. Here are 10 things an intelligent person will never say. If you've ever heard these words, pay attention. If you've ever said them yourself, it may be time to stop. Number 1. The world is so unfair. Of course it is. Who told you otherwise? Some are born into mansions, some into slums. Some enter the world with perfect health, while others take their first breath already battling a lifetime of pain. A child in Switzerland grows up with a world-class education, while another in a war-torn country scavenges for food before they can even spell their own name. Some inherit wealth and power without lifting a finger, while others work themselves to the bone and still struggle to survive. Life does not deal out justice like a careful accountant, ensuring everyone gets exactly what they deserve. It never has, and it never will. And yet, here you are, complaining about fairness as if the universe owes you something. The world isn't fair. It isn't supposed to be. A fool spends his life resenting this truth. He looks at those above him with envy, those below him with disdain, and does nothing but wallow in his own misfortune. He believes he has been cheated, that the world has conspired against him, that he is helpless in the face of its cruelty. And because of that belief, he never rises. A wise man? He does not waste energy on what cannot be changed. He accepts that life will never deal an even hand. He does not cry over the advantages he lacks. He plays the cards he was given better than anyone expected. He understands that success is not about fairness, but about adaptability. You did not choose where you were born. You did not choose the body you were given, the parents you had, or the obstacles in your path. But you do choose what you do next. You choose whether to let bitterness consume you, or to take whatever life has handed you and make something of it. Seneca once said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare that things are difficult." The world will never be fair, but if you are smart, strong, and relentless, you can make it work for you. Number 2. I want to succeed quickly and easily. Ethan sat in front of his laptop, staring at yet another motivational video promising overnight success. Make 6 figures in 6 months. Become a millionaire with this one trick. Everywhere he looked, the same message echoed. Success should be fast, easy, and effortless. He believed it because he wanted to. He believed it because the alternative, years of grinding, failing, and pushing through obstacles, felt unbearable. So he jumped from one thing to another, chasing shortcuts. He tried day trading, then real estate flipping, then drop shipping, then cryptocurrency. Every time he hit a roadblock, he quit and moved on to the next big thing. He never stayed long enough to master anything, never endured the painful but necessary phase where real skill is built. And yet, he couldn't understand why success never came. People like Ethan don't fail because they lack intelligence or ambition. They fail because they believe success should be instant. They think there's a hidden trick, a shortcut, a way to bypass the struggle. They don't understand that behind every great achievement is an ugly, grueling process no one likes to talk about. They see the highlight reel, the billionaires, the champions, the artists at their peak, but they don't see the decades of quiet suffering it took to get there. The truth? There is no such thing as easy success. Those who chase it end up wasting years, searching for something that doesn't exist. They jump from one dream to the next, always excited at the beginning, always discouraged when reality hits. The people who actually succeed, they know from the start that it's going to take time. They embrace the struggle, the boredom, the setbacks, and the nights where quitting feels like the only option. They don't waste time looking for shortcuts. They spend it building skill, discipline, and resilience. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The obstacles, the difficulties, the slow progress, these aren't signs that you're on the wrong path. They are the path. Success isn't about skipping the hard parts. It's about enduring them long enough to separate yourself from the people who quit too soon. Ethan never became rich overnight, but eventually he learned. He stopped chasing trends and committed to mastering one skill. He worked in silence without expecting quick results, without counting the days until success arrived. And slowly, painfully, he improved. A year passed, then 5. By the time he looked up, he had become the kind of person he once envied. Not because of a secret trick, but because he had finally accepted what success truly requires. Number 3. Why am I never lucky? Daniel sat at the cafe, staring at his friend Lucas, who had just landed a high-paying job at a prestigious firm. "You're so lucky," Daniel muttered, stirring his coffee. "Things just always seem to work out for you." Lucas raised an eyebrow and laughed. "Lucky? You think this was luck?" People like Daniel see success as a roll of the dice. Some are born lucky, and others, like him, are doomed to struggle. He watches others get promotions, find opportunities, build wealth, and he assumes they just happen to be in the right place at the right time. What he doesn't see are the years of work, the sleepless nights, the preparation that made their luck possible. In The Secret of Luck, authors Alex Rivera and Fernando Trias de Bes explain that luck is not something that randomly strikes a chosen few. It's something you create. Lucky people aren't waiting for fate to favor them. They are actively putting themselves in situations where opportunities can happen. They take risks, build connections, and stay ready so that when the right moment arrives, they can seize it. Unlucky people? They wait. They complain. They stand still, hoping for a miracle. A farmer who plants seeds, waters his fields, and cares for his crops doesn't call himself lucky when harvest season arrives. He expected it. He worked for it. Meanwhile, another farmer who did nothing and finds his land barren will curse the heavens, blaming fate for his misfortune. The difference isn't luck, it's action. Seneca once said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." If you're always unprepared, if you never take action, if you never put yourself in a position to win, of course you won't get lucky. The job you wanted went to someone who spent years developing their skills. The investment opportunity that made someone rich was taken by someone who had studied the market. The chance to meet the right people never came because you never left your comfort zone. Daniel sighed, realizing that Lucas had spent years building his career, networking, improving his skills, applying for dozens of jobs before landing this one. Maybe it wasn't luck after all. Maybe the reason he wasn't getting lucky was simple. He had never truly prepared himself for luck to find him. Number 4. I'm not good enough. Oliver stared at the blank page in front of him, gripping his pen so tightly his knuckles turned white. He had always wanted to write, but every time he tried, a voice in his head whispered, "You're not good enough. You'll never be as talented as real writers." He closed his notebook, convinced that if he wasn't naturally gifted, there was no point in trying. This is the mistake many people make. They believe skill is something you either have or don't, that greatness is reserved for the talented, and that if they struggle at something, it must mean they're not meant to do it. But that's a lie. No one is born excellent at anything. Every master was once a beginner. Every expert was once incompetent. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent. It's the willingness to endure being bad at something long enough to improve. People who say, "I'm not good enough," are often just afraid. Afraid of failing, afraid of looking foolish, afraid that their efforts won't be enough. But fear doesn't make a statement true. Struggling with something today doesn't mean you won't master it tomorrow. It just means you haven't put in the time yet. In The Art of Learning, Josh Waitzkin, a chess prodigy and world champion martial artist, describes how the best performers embrace discomfort. They don't run from difficulty. They lean into it. They fail, they adapt, they repeat the process until what once seemed impossible becomes second nature. They don't waste time deciding whether they're good enough. They just get to work. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And the first step to mastering yourself is silencing the voice that tells you you're not capable. Oliver finally understood this when he read an old interview with his favorite author. The man admitted that when he started writing, his work was terrible, embarrassingly bad. But he kept going, and that was the only difference between him and everyone else who gave up. Oliver opened his notebook again. His writing still wasn't perfect, but now he knew. It didn't have to be. It just had to exist. Because the only way to get better at something is to do it badly, again and again, until one day you wake up and realize you've become what you thought you could never be. Number 5. I'm afraid of being judged. Emma had always wanted to start a YouTube channel. She had ideas, passion, and something valuable to say. But every time she thought about pressing upload, a cold wave of anxiety washed over her. What if people laugh at me? What if they criticize my voice? What if they think I'm stupid? The fear of judgment gripped her so tightly that she did nothing. She watched others succeed while she remained stuck, paralyzed by a battle that existed only in her own mind. Fear of judgment is one of the greatest prisons people build for themselves. It stops them from speaking up in meetings, from trying something new, from chasing their ambitions. But here's the truth. People are going to judge you no matter what. Do nothing, and they'll judge you for being weak. Do something, and they'll judge you for trying. Either way, opinions will come. The only difference is whether you let them dictate your life. Most people aren't even thinking about you as much as you believe. They are too caught up in their own insecurities, their own problems, their own fears of being judged. The criticism you dread? It's often fleeting. People move on, forget, and focus back on themselves. But the regret of never trying? That stays with you forever. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You can't control what others think of you, but you can control whether or not you let it stop you. Intelligent people understand that true value isn't found in the approval of others. It's found in mastery, in purpose, in becoming the best version of yourself. Emma eventually hit upload. The first video wasn't perfect, and yes, a few people left negative comments, but none of that mattered, because while others were busy judging, she was busy creating, and that is the only thing that ever leads to success. Number 6. I already know everything. Nathan sat in the meeting room, arms crossed, barely listening as his new manager, a woman 10 years younger than him, explained a new strategy. He nodded occasionally, but in his mind, he had already dismissed everything she was saying. What could she possibly teach me? I've been doing this longer than she's been out of college. This attitude, the belief that one has nothing left to learn, is the fastest way to stagnation. The moment someone thinks they know it all, they stop growing. They stop improving. They become blind to new ideas, deaf to feedback, and resistant to change. And eventually, they get left behind. The most intelligent people in history, philosophers, scientists, leaders, never claimed to know everything. They remained students until their last breath, constantly questioning, evolving, and seeking wisdom in unexpected places. Socrates, one of the greatest minds of all time, famously said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." Yet somehow, people like Nathan, who haven't achieved a fraction of what Socrates did, walk around believing they've reached the peak of knowledge. Refusing to listen, especially when the speaker is younger, less experienced, or holds a lower title, is nothing but ego. A smart person values the idea, not the title of the person saying it. They don't dismiss knowledge based on age or position. They ask questions. They stay curious. They understand that the world is always changing, and the moment they stop learning is the moment they start becoming obsolete. A year later, Nathan was still stuck in the same position, watching as younger colleagues advanced past him. His refusal to listen had cost him opportunities he didn't even realize existed. Because intelligence isn't about how much you already know, it's about your willingness to keep learning. Number 7. I don't need anyone's help. Jonathan prided himself on being self-sufficient. He built his business from the ground up, handled every decision himself, and never asked for advice. To him, relying on others was a sign of weakness. He had seen too many people fail because they depended on the wrong people, and he swore he would never make that mistake. If you want something done right, do it yourself, he told himself. But as his company grew, cracks started to appear. He was overwhelmed, drowning in responsibilities, missing deadlines, and making costly mistakes. His refusal to delegate slowed everything down. Worse, he rejected valuable advice from mentors who had already navigated the struggles he was facing. He convinced himself he was the exception, that he didn't need guidance, didn't need support. Until reality proved otherwise. No one, no matter how intelligent, skilled, or disciplined, succeeds entirely alone. The greatest leaders in history surrounded themselves with advisors. The most brilliant minds built upon the knowledge of others. True strength isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about knowing when to seek help, when to collaborate, and when to learn from those who have walked the path before you. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and Roman emperors, once said, "If anyone can refute me, show me I am making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I will gladly change. It is the truth I seek, not to be right." Intelligent people don't isolate themselves in their own opinions. They welcome guidance, knowing that pride is often the biggest enemy of progress. Jonathan eventually learned this the hard way. After nearly burning out, he finally hired a trusted team, sought advice from experienced mentors, and realized that true power comes not from rejecting help, but from knowing how to use it wisely. He didn't lose control, he gained efficiency. He didn't appear weak, he became more effective. People who refuse help often do so out of fear. Fear of appearing incompetent, fear of losing control, fear of admitting they don't know everything. But the irony? The most incompetent people are those who believe they don't need others. And the strongest, smartest individuals? They leverage the knowledge and support around them to go further than they ever could alone. Number 8. It's not my fault. If anything, someone else influenced me. Michael had just lost his 3rd job in 2 years. Sitting at a bar with his friend, he ranted about how unfair it all was. The manager had it out for me. The company was a mess. My coworkers kept sabotaging my work. If it weren't for them, I'd still have my job. His friend simply sipped his drink and said nothing. He had heard this speech before. Different job, same excuses. People like Michael live in a world where nothing is ever their fault. When things go wrong, it's always someone else who caused it. If they miss a deadline, it's because a coworker distracted them. If their business fails, it's because the economy was bad. If they make a mistake, it's because someone misled them. In their mind, they are never truly responsible for anything. Mindset is a guaranteed way to stay stagnant and powerless. Why? Because if everything is someone else's fault, then there's nothing to fix. No lessons to learn. No behavior to change. And if you don't change, your problems don't either. Intelligent people know that taking responsibility isn't about self-blame. It's about self-empowerment. When you accept responsibility, you gain control. If you acknowledge that your failures are at least partially your doing, you also realize that you have the power to fix them. You can sharpen your skills, adjust your strategy, and make better decisions in the future. Epictetus once said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." The difference between those who grow and those who stay stuck isn't the challenges they face, it's how they respond. Those who blame external forces remain trapped, waiting for the world to fix itself. Those who take ownership move forward because they understand that the only thing they can truly control is themselves. Months later, Michael's friend caught up with him. He was still unemployed, still blaming bad luck and bad people. Meanwhile, the coworkers he had once accused of sabotaging him, they had all moved on to better opportunities. The truth was clear. Michael wasn't a victim of his circumstances. He was a victim of his own mindset. Number 9. If only I could go back in time. Sophia sat in her apartment, scrolling through old photos, lingering on the ones where she looked happiest: her college years, an old relationship, a past job where she felt valued. Life seemed simpler then, better. She whispered to herself, "If only I could go back. If only I had made a different choice. If only things had stayed the same." Nostalgia is seductive. It wraps the past in warm colors, erasing the struggles and amplifying the joys. But the truth? The past is gone. It cannot be relived, rewritten, or reclaimed. And those who dwell on it too much often struggle to move forward. Studies in psychology show that excessive nostalgia and regret are linked to slower adaptation and lower emotional resilience. Research from the University of Southampton found that while nostalgia can provide temporary comfort, those who constantly idealize the past often struggle with depression, anxiety, and dissatisfaction with their current life. Their minds are trapped in what was, preventing them from fully engaging in what is. In contrast, people who focus on the present and future tend to be more adaptable, optimistic, and successful. Instead of mourning lost opportunities, they create new ones. Instead of resenting the passing of time, they use what they've learned to shape a better future. Marcus Aurelius, a man who could have spent his life longing for an easier fate, instead wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbor, unless with a view to some mutual benefit. Think rather of something useful and necessary." In other words, the only thing that matters is what you do next. Sophia eventually realized that her happiest moments weren't behind her. They were ahead of her. She put down the photos, closed her laptop, and started focusing on building a future she wouldn't have to look back on with longing. Because life isn't meant to be rewound, it's meant to be lived. Number 10. I'll be happy when I achieve that. James had one goal: buy a house. He worked tirelessly, taking overtime shifts, skipping vacations, and sacrificing time with his family. He told himself that once he had the keys in his hands, he would finally be happy. But when the day arrived, when he and his wife stepped into their new home, something felt off. The excitement faded faster than he expected. He had spent years chasing this moment, yet the happiness he thought would last forever was already slipping away. This is the trap so many people fall into. They tie their happiness to a future achievement. They believe joy is waiting for them at some distant finish line. I'll be happy when I get promoted. I'll be happy when I lose weight. I'll be happy when I make a certain amount of money. But research in psychology consistently shows that happiness is not a destination. It is a process. A study from Harvard's positive psychology program found that people who tie their happiness to achievements often experience a temporary high, but quickly return to their baseline level of satisfaction. This is known as the hedonic treadmill, the idea that no matter how much we achieve, we always end up chasing the next thing. We tell ourselves we will be happy when, but the finish line keeps moving. Truly intelligent people understand that happiness doesn't come from reaching a goal. It comes from how you live each day. It's not the house, it's the laughter shared while planning it. It's not the promotion, it's the skills and relationships built along the way. It's not the number in your bank account. It's the peace of mind that comes from living with purpose. Seneca once said, "If you live in harmony with nature, you will never be poor. If you live according to what others think, you will never be rich." True wealth isn't measured in possessions or status. It's found in the moments we often overlook. A warm meal with family, the quiet pride of personal growth, the comfort of holding your partner's hand as you walk into the home you built together. James eventually understood this. Sitting in his living room, he realized the house itself wasn't what made him happy. It was the journey of getting there. The small victories, the sacrifices made worth it by the people he shared them with. Because happiness was never waiting for him in the future, it had been with him the entire time. Closing. Words can elevate you or they can betray you. A single careless sentence can reveal your weaknesses, diminish your credibility, or expose a mindset that keeps you stuck. But the wise understand something fools never do. The most powerful words are often the ones left unsaid. An intelligent person does not waste energy proving their intelligence. They do not argue for the sake of ego, nor do they give away their plans before they act. They observe, they learn, they speak only when necessary. Their silence is strategy. Their words, when spoken, carry weight. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." And yet, so many people do the opposite. They talk endlessly, trying to impress, trying to justify, trying to defend themselves against opinions that don't matter. But real wisdom? It does not need validation. It does not seek approval. It speaks only when it must, and when it does, people listen. So ask yourself, how many of these phrases have you spoken? How many times have your own words worked against you? And more importantly, what will you do differently now that you know better? Comment, "I choose my words wisely," below if you understand that intelligence is not just what you know, it's how you speak. Like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic for more insights on mastering your mind, your words, and your life.